Welcome to Whoop with Jen. It's another amazing day because I have another amazing guest, and it's Cynthia. She's back, Cynthia Macluskie. Welcome back, Cynthia. I'm so excited that you are here.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here too, even with my broken foot.
Yes, so Cynthia has a broken foot. She has a huge boot on her foot, and she pulled up, and I kept waiting for the doorbell to ring, and I realized it was because it was taking you that long to get from your car, and you were only halfway up the front walk.
I'm really not that great with crutches, I have to say.
Crutches
it's a little
suck.
embarrassing. Yeah.
So fortunately, I have these awesome dining room chairs that have casters, and I just rolled one over to the front door, and she just was able to wheel herself to the dining room table.
Which I so appreciate.
Well, that's what I did when I fell down my stairs and hurt my ankle. I
Oh
just
my
scooted
gosh.
all over the floor on these coasters.
We're getting older. We have to take care of ourselves.
I know. So welcome back, boot and all. I
Thank
love
you.
that you are here. It's crazy that we're doing this on a Thursday morning because I have a full-time consulting job, so I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with spending time on this too, but
But you know what? I think it just, it's what makes you happy. So you have to have time for that, right?
I know. I
Yeah.
do. And I'm really lucky that I love doing this so much. So I hope everyone loves to listen as much as I love doing it.
Awesome.
So I invited Cynthia to come back to talk about a program called Be Safe that really needs to be known everywhere in every
Yes.
state in every country. And I'm not super familiar with it. So we have a dual purpose here is to share it with all of you, but also to educate me on it because it's hugely important and critical to the safety of our kids.
It saves lives.
It saves
Yes.
lives, and it doesn't just save lives for people who maybe have a disability, an intellectual disability, but it also, I think, saves the emotional life of people in law enforcement and first responders.
Absolutely.
So introduce Be Safe a little
Okay, so let me tell you how I found it, because that's an important part of the story.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you remember, there was a pretty famous YouTuber with autism a few years ago that lived in Mesa. I kind of think we all do. And they had a meltdown, let's just say. Mesa police showed up. Inexperienced police, not CIT trained police, which I'm going to go
What's
into.
CIT?
So CIT stands for Crisis Intervention Training.
Okay.
So
Hugely necessary.
yes, and nationally, there's a goal to have every police department have 25% of their people trained as CIT.
Only 25%.
Well,
I mean,
it's pretty expensive because it's 40 hours of training in a block, and then it's ongoing training. And so in our state, actually, we're doing a really good job. Almost every department is at 25%. Scottsdale, I think, is at 40 or 60%. So it's, I think the goal should be 100%, but we're not there yet. And it's a completely volunteer program. So the law enforcement that volunteers for it, they have a passion for it, right? And they're trained in de-escalation, and they're trained in mental health, and they're trained in developmental disabilities. And they are really excellent at providing support and de-escalation so things don't turn ugly. So what happened was this person had a knife, and it was an inexperienced, not CIT trained officer, and he shot and killed this person. And a CIT person was on their way, but they weren't there yet. And I just got pissed, just pissed that this is always happening in our community and nothing's being done. And what I realized quickly on is everybody, when something like this happens, is like, what is law enforcement doing? And I thought, you know what? That's not going to win us any friends.
that's sort of unfair to expect them to already know the answer to that.
Right.
I think that's totally unfair. Yes, they do need to have training, but how could they actually cultivate that amongst themselves when they aren't directly
Right.
living with it every single day?
Exactly. And I felt like there's this entitlement mentality sometimes. Like, I have a special needs kid, so the entire world should accommodate me. And in actuality, even if that were possible, it's too hard, right? We have to have some ownership. with our relationship with the community. So I started like asking questions. Is there something out there that we could use to train people with developmental disabilities on how to interact safely with law enforcement? So turning it on its head, not demanding law enforcement have training, but actually trying to find training for us. And the reason I was thinking in that direction is because I don't think you're going to get anywhere politically accusing law enforcement of not doing a good enough job and demanding that they get more training when A, you don't even know what training they have, B, you don't even have a relationship with them, and C, you're not offering to do anything from your community's perspective to help them, right?
Because success only happens when the arrows are pointing in both directions.
That's right.
You can't just expect to receive all the time. I mean, nothing
That's
works
right.
that way.
No, it doesn't. So, and Autism Society of Greater Phoenix had no relationship with law enforcement, really. So what were we going to do? Like, there's no way to make that connection. So I met an amazing woman, Nancy Martinez, who works for the Chandler Police Department and is a special needs mom. And she said to me, have you heard of Be Safe? And I was being interviewed by her because she does this amazing training for law enforcement. And she wanted some stories that she could share when she's training law enforcement. So that's kind of how we connected. And I'm like, no, I've never heard of Be Safe. So I went online, I saw it, I fell in love instantly.
You're a huge researcher.
I am.
You're a research junkie.
I just cannot help myself. So, and you know how I am, I'm also action oriented. So I like looked it over, I'm like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. Look, I have goosebumps.
I love it.
I just love this program.
Okay, I just got goosebumps.
It's so awesome.
So much energy right now.
So I ordered the program.
Like you just went online and
Just
ordered it?
bought it.
Is
and
it
I'm
a
like,
book? Or,
and it's a video series and curriculum. And so I just bought it and I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing. We're going to go out into the community and we're going to do this. And
easy peasy.
Yeah, because I like to wing it. So, if you're worried about making things perfect, you never get anything done, right? So I'm like, how hard can it be? Is my attitude. So
I've heard you say that phrase before about something else.
It's really a
How
problem.
hard could it be?
So the first community that was willing to let me do it or sort of experiment on them was the Hispanic community in the West Valley. And they have an autism support group that's mostly conducted in Spanish. And let me just be clear, I don't even pretend that I understand Spanish at all. I failed Spanish in college. So I don't know why. I was like, sure, I'll teach it. I've never taught it before, and I'll teach it in Spanish. How hard can it be?
Oh,
yeah.
You added that on.
Yes.
Another language.
Yeah. So
it's muy bueno.
I know, like, isn't that great? So then I'm like, so I had to have a translator because let me just say, like, no way could I have done it on my own. So it's 6 hours before I'm about to do this training in the West Valley. And one of the reasons they were so supportive is an adult with autism was shot and killed 6 years ago in the West Valley. So this is an important subject to them.
Well, and I can't even imagine the factors of having an intellectual disability and also not being a primary English speaker.
Right.
You're like, you've got multiple handicaps
that's
there.
right.
That's a golf phrase. I'm not trying to use the H word, but
right. It's hard, right? So, so we kind of partnered with Ideal Care that runs GAIN, which is the support group for people for the Spanish speaking. And I'm running through the program at 6 hours. Okay, 6 hours before I go on. And I'm thinking, oh, wait, I have some questions. This might not be as easy as I thought. So I called the woman who invented it and wrote it. And her name is Emily Island. And I said, hey, I'm going to be doing this training. And she said, you can't do that. You haven't been certified by me. And I said, well, that's going to be a problem because...
Then they shouldn't allow you to buy the package.
Right. I said, that's going to be a problem because I'm teaching 60 people in 6 hours. So luckily...
You totally wing it. You buy this stuff, you learn it, you read it, you're like, I'm going to go promote it, and I'm not certified or licensed.
And I had no idea.
I shouldn't be able to sell it without a little disclosure.
So I guess you can buy it for your in-home private use, but I didn't get that,
You're like an end user.
So I'm like...
Are you in trouble?
Well, she was I mean, this is just, I think this is a God thing because I call her, because I didn't know. And so I said, listen, I have 60 people in 6 hours and I'm doing it. Like, I'm not canceling it. So what are our options? So she trained me over the phone for about 2.5 hours, prepping me to do this class. Keep in mind, in Spanish.
That's amazing that she did that.
Yes.
I'm sure she had nothing else to do that day, right?
I mean, seriously, because I call out of the blue, right? There's no appointment or anything.
So do you have a certificate?
I do. I'm now certified. So what happened was I explained to her, there's no way that this program is going to get off the ground in this state unless you let me promote it and educate people about why it's necessary. So she did the 2.5 hour training for me, and then I just started doing them. So I did 20 in the very first year. So the first one, Spanish, there was a translator. It actually went beautifully.
Are you training the community, not the law enforcement people?
No, it's
you're
not
just training
the community. Community only.
You're training the community.
Yes. Now, so the way that Be Safe works is you have to have law enforcement participate, because the whole point is to build the relationship between the community and law enforcement. So what happens is we invite members with disabilities and their families, and then we invite law enforcement. So there's usually like between 1 and 10 law enforcement officers will show up and participate.
That's a lot.
Yes, it is. And they have to be committed to, because it's a 2.5 hour program just to kick it off, right? So we did it in the West Valley first, and I got such amazing support from Glendale and Peoria. When I did one in Peoria, the city council member showed up, the chief of police showed up, they had fire and police there. They had 12 or 13 people there. It was amazing. So what we do is we educate people with developmental disabilities how to interact with law enforcement. And if you think about it, we're all fighting for inclusion, right? That's what we want for our community, inclusion.
Accepting of how they are.
Right.
At that time.
Right.
Because it changes.
Right. And so you can't push for inclusion and then not teach them how to interact safely.
Right. I agree.
So we did the one in Spanish. They loved it. Everybody just fell in love with it. And so then the next one was in Peoria. And it was really cool what happened in Peoria. So we had 70 people, 13 law enforcement and fire, and we're interacting and we're doing these, it's a video modeling. And so there's videos like what is a law, tools of law enforcement. So they're teaching these concrete skills through video modeling. And so we'll watch a
video. Which is hugely important because I know my daughter learns mostly through a visual lesson as opposed to me talking to her, because she probably discounts most of what comes out of my mouth.
Of course, as every child would, right?
Typical.
Yeah.
Too.
That's right. So what I do is I prime them with conversation, and it's very interactive. Then we watch a video, and then we talk about what we learned from the video, and I incorporate some of the things that I love, so a little bit of the social thinking and some other things, right? And then I incorporate parents, what are your concerns? So, because I'm an expert in the system, so what I find is people don't understand the system, so they're using law enforcement as social services because they don't know how the system works. And law enforcement isn't social services, so they don't really connect families to what they need to avoid having interactions with law enforcement. So it's just kind of a mess. So one of the goals of Be Safe is to find out what's going on in the community and provide resources to those families that are in crisis. So this one mother stood up and she was pissed and she was shaking and she pointed her finger at this cop and she's like, "I'm afraid you're gonna kill my kid." And she was so negative. And I said, you know what? Stop. Real fear produces action. So if you have a fear, let's talk about that and what action you need to take. Why are you afraid law enforcement's going to kill your kid? Well, he plays with his cell phone in and out of his pocket. Well, let me tell you, that is a good way to get shot, right? So then let's connect you with services through All Tax Access and DDD, which is our Medicaid system for people with developmental disabilities. Let's get you ABA. Let's get you behavioral health. Let's work on a skill so that he's no longer doing that and he's not in danger of being shot. Let's teach him how to interact with law enforcement instead of having this anger and this fear, right? So it was really important because she had no idea there were services available.
Fear is debilitating.
It is.
And it can stop the most intellectual person from looking at things with a rational eye, and especially when you're a mother or a parent,
right?
Because you're so fearful for your kid. And I used to think that my daughter was the way she was, and that I just had to accept it. And through the power of ABA, which is Applied Behavioral Analysis, it's therapy. I have higher expectations for her because I just tell her how it's got to be.
Right.
And she responds to that. And I was at a point where I wasn't going to be where we were today because I had accepted I was defeated or accepted our fate. But yes, everyone has the potential to be taught or demonstrated something, to know what's expected.
Yes. And if you read so one of my favorite books is The Gift of Fear. And in that book, he explains that real fear produces action for you to save your life. So when we're talking about fear, like she was expressing, that's not really fear, that's worry.
Mm-hmm.
Because
she's not confronted with an actual
right. And she's not
situation.
taking any action, right? So she's just worrying. So what we were able to do is connect her with services so she didn't have to have that worry. So in that same meeting, there was a child there that was trained, and there was law enforcement that was trained, and I could never have predicted this. Months later, the child is punching the mother in the head in a car, and law enforcement pulls her over and has guns drawn, and they're screaming at them, right? Because imagine you're a police officer and you see this big guy punching someone who's driving in the head.
Right.
Like, they don't know. And her child has autism, but he's also very big. So she pulls over. He's still wailing. There's two police officers, guns pointed. She rolls down her window. She's screaming, "He has autism. He has autism." And lo and behold, those two officers had been at the training.
Okay.
And they were like, okay, we get this.
Holster the guns.
Yeah. And
diffuse the situation.
That's right. And they were able to calm everything down, call the father, have the father come over and help with the son. And the mother says that she truly believes that Be Safe saved her son's life that day. And I do too. So it's really powerful because it does, first it trains parents to start thinking about safety. Because when we have kids with special needs, we think about it when they're little, right?
Right.
What is your name? What is your phone number? These things. So we have safety goals for little kids. We usually don't have any safety goals for adults.
Right.
Like, no one's really talking about that. So the other thing that I'm really passionate about this program, so it talks about what you do when you meet an officer. So what do? You stay calm. Mm-hmm. You don't run. Mm-hmm. You don't touch their stuff.
You don't put your hands in your pockets.
Right. And you do what you're told immediately. So we play this game, Officer Simon Says, and the kids practice doing exactly what the officer says as quickly as possible.
My daughter would love that game.
It's so fun.
Because she'd be the first to be like, "Oh, you're my friend. I'm going to come over and hug you." Because she respects people in uniform.
Right.
She respects the sirens, the cars, fire trucks, like all that. She would probably want to go over and hug them. And because her verbal skills aren't proficient enough for people who don't know her well to understand her, she's unintelligible.
Right.
I'm sure that would freak someone out, except for the fact that she'd probably have a huge smile on her face.
Right.
I mean, my daughter's kind of like the exception.
Well, also,
but I can only imagine.
She's a female, so imagine you have autism, you're nonverbal, you're black, and you're tall, and you're a male.
Yep.
So imagine that and what an officer might think.
Right.
So, I mean, that I worked with a guy who does some policy work for Black Lives Matter. And he has two sons with autism, and they're teenagers, but they're giant, and they're nonverbal. And he's terrified. And I can totally get that. That's why education on both sides is so important. And what happens is when you do Be Safe, law enforcement participates, and then they go, oh, wait, there's a need. We need to learn more. And because we're not saying, what are you doing? But we're saying, help us.
Here's what we're doing.
Yes, and help us. The next thing I hear from them is, can you connect us to more training? And I say, yes.
So are you the only one certified in Arizona to do Be Safe training?
So let me tell
Are
you.
you the one-stop shop?
No. Well, my goal was, and I still do them, like I just did one the other night for AZ Assist. So we had like 70 people.
That's a lot of people to show up for something.
Yes. And so we have like probably 35 kiddos, adults, and then parents, and then law enforcement. So I still do it because it's my love, and I've done almost 50 of them now. So I think I'm pretty good.
You're good.
But what I can tell you is Denise Resnick with SARC and First Place, Autism Society of America, and Autism Speaks, I went to them and I said, please give me money. I want to train people in this program. And between them and Autism Society of Greater Phoenix, we have trained 97 trainers in the state who are certified to train.
Trainers.
Yes.
That's a lot of people.
Yes. So we have 97 trainers in our state that are now available to do this training. And I think we've trained over 1,000 people with developmental disabilities. And so I've told Autism Society that I want to do 4 a year, one every quarter, because I love it so much, and I love interacting with our special needs community, and they're so fun, and they really like the program. So the curriculum is cool because it designs curriculum depending on where they're at and meets them where they're at. So there's stuff for people who have lots of skills, and there's stuff for people that don't have as many skills. So we'll play Simon Says, or the other great one is we do Jeopardy. So, and we go over what the laws are. What are they? What's the point of a law?
Right.
Right? You have to start there. Why do we have a law? What is it? So it's a rule. Why do we have them? So that everybody in our community knows the rule and what to expect, right?
Right.
So I like to bring in some of my own stuff that I've taken from social thinking. So what's expected and what's unexpected. And when we do something unexpected, nobody knows what's going on. Everybody's wondering what's happening here. So we have rules so we know what's expected. And I always give the example of because I'm notorious for not always doing what's expected.
You?
Yes, shocking, right?
Not you.
So I tell this story. I'm with my husband. We're at a stop sign. It's a 4-way stop. I stop. It's my turn to go. And to the car on the right, I say, no, you go. I don't know why. I'm just trying to be polite. No, you go.
Because the car on the right is supposed to go first.
Well, actually,
we live in Arizona and people actually don't know.
I was actually there first.
Oh, you were there first.
So I was supposed to go.
Oh, so you're one of those people that I wave on.
Yeah. So the guy on the right doesn't know what to do because it's not his turn, but I'm telling him to go. And now there's someone at we have 4 people now going, what the hell is happening? And my husband's like, why are you doing this? You've confused everyone. And nobody knows what to do now. And I'm like, oh, this is a really good example for my Be Safe, right? So we all do it, whether you have special needs or not. So it's trying to teach people, what is the law? Why do we have them? How do you do it? What are the tools for law enforcement? Can I touch them? And so these are just basic things, but it's things that we don't talk about. And then the thing that I'm the most passionate about is teaching self-disclosure and teaching the right to remain silent. Because you don't have a right if you don't know it, right?
Sure.
So one of the things that was sort of controversial when I did the training, I trained 97 people. We brought Emily Island out to do the training because she's the inventor of the program. I raised
She's the one that trained you over the phone. And
Yes, yes. So it's her program. It's evidence-based. She's done a beautiful job. It's used all over the country for the people that know about it. And so we brought her. She's doing the training. We have a packed house. We funded law enforcement to be trained, so there's several officers that are trained in it, so they can do training. So Amanda Stamp is trained in Mesa, so she does be safes all the time with Mesa PD, and she's a CIT training officer. Sabrina Taylor with Phoenix, trained in Be Safe. So we're all in here, and we're talking about the right to remain silent. And I don't know, I'm outside of the room. And someone comes out and they're like, you better get in here. So there's a real controversy because some of law enforcement was like, you shouldn't be teaching that. You shouldn't be teaching people with disabilities that they have a right to remain silent. And
wait, why are their rights less than ours?
Right.
That's crazy.
Crazy. So this is not all law enforcement, because I got to tell you.
No, it's just a person being dumb.
Yes. And so I've had other law enforcement later go, hey, I totally believe in that. Don't you ever let anybody talk you out of it, as if they could talk me out of anything. But it was very interesting. And so I want to tell you this horrible, horrendous story about a child not knowing that they have a right to remain silent. So there's this kiddo who was going to ASU, high functioning autism, and he was living in an apartment, and druggies figured out that he didn't have as many skills as maybe he needed to be living there. They took over his apartment, they stole his car. He got into the car to try to negotiate getting his car back. And because he's high functioning, he didn't want to tell anybody. He didn't call his parents. He wanted to take care of it himself.
It on his own.
Right. So he's in the car begging for his car back. They go do a drug deal. At the drug deal, someone kills the drug dealer. They're all arrested for murder. The people that did the murder got off for self-defense. He was arrested with them. He spoke to law enforcement for 10 hours. And he said all sorts of stuff, and he parroted stuff. And guess what? He's serving prison time right now. His family lost their house, their 401k, everything. And lots of people in our community donated, like Dr. Melma, Dr. Sarah, like lots of people donated time to advocate for him. And yet he's serving 3 years because he had to take a plea deal or risk going to jail for murder, even though he was completely innocent. And the fucking judge said when he was sentencing him to the maximum that he could according to the plea deal is that we don't care about autism. It's a social defect, and it's not something that they have to take into consideration.
Okay, well, I could get totally angry here, but obviously that judge is an asshole.
Yes.
And unfortunately, people are put in positions of power when they don't deserve it. And
they don't know.
How can you claim, guilty by insanity, but not guilty because of an intellectual disability?
And
you know what I mean?
Say,
like, it's still a mental, functional issue.
So I have tried to do training for judges for years. I got invited to do some training in municipal court, but only for their workers, not for judges, which is unfortunate because judges really need training. But the thing, again, it goes back to you have a tragedy. What power do we have as the special needs community? We have the power to educate our people that they have the right to remain silent. Mm-hmm. We have the power to talk to parents about guardianship and other choices to keep their members safe. So it wasn't appropriate for his family to have guardianship, but supportive decision-making might have been appropriate. And so I'm working on a bill this legislative session. Yeah.
Of course you are.
On supportive decision-making with John Meyer with the ARC. And so we're going to run that because we have a whole population of people where guardianship is not the right answer, but they need something. So through Be Safe, we're having these conversations and we're raising awareness. So how many times has anyone mentioned to you that you have to teach your daughter that she has the right to remain silent?
Never. It's never come
Right. We
crossed
just
my
we don't
mind.
talk about it. So
Well,
it's
I don't know if
important.
she's capable of being silent. I mean, she's a
But that could be a
jibber
goal,
jabber.
right? That could be a
It'd be a
goal.
great goal if she could be silent sometimes
Yes.
because I need her
I
to
used
be
to
silent.
I used to pay Mark $1 a minute.
Oh my gosh. Okay, from now on, because I was trying to work at home last night and she was just yammering. She was happy, so she just yammers when she's happy. And I'm like, can you just be quiet? I'm going to reward her with one of her sugar-free gummy worms from Sprouts. I'll be like, you get another
Seriously.
gummy worm if you can be quiet.
No, seriously, I did. You know, it was so weird because he was nonverbal for so long and we wanted him to talk.
I know.
And then
And then he started talking. You got
you're
what
like,
you
shut
wanted.
up! I can't think.
I know. She was so mute for so many years, and all I wanted to do was to hear her talk. And then she started talking, and she never shut
I know,
up.
that's
I'm like,
funny. Oh my gosh.
oh my gosh.
Yes.
I think that's huge. I don't, because she's 15, there's so much. I'm still a mother for her, and I haven't yet managed to wrap my brain around the fact that she's going to be an adult. And
Right.
even if she isn't independent, she's still going to run into scenarios.
That's right.
And I think that because people with intellectual disabilities don't always physically appear different, there's no cue to the behavior, and officers are put in such a terrible position when it is life or death because they have to make a decision in an instant.
Second. Yeah.
And I love the fact that Be Safe does focus on the community having an amount of responsibility and not just blaming officers.
Well, let me tell you the greatest thing that happened through Be Safe. I have relationships with every law enforcement agency in the Valley
Of course you do.
because they love this program.
I love that they love the
You
program.
know? So we've built a community together that we didn't have before. And it's not adversarial. It's like, how can we help each other? So they reach out to me. They'll say, hey, like Glendale called me and they said, we are having a lot of problems in this school. Would you be willing to come to Be Safe to 200 kiddos? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
When?
happy to. And so I did. And Glendale Police Department sponsored it.
Well, and that's what I was thinking is what if you can partner with every single school district in the state of Arizona so that it's part of their curriculum
It
and their
should be.
programming.
Well, and also DDD. So I just got invited and did a presentation to all the DDD supervisors at they have a conference every year. And so they gave me an hour and a half to present Be Safe because I wanted to talk about goals. Let's add these safety goals to our teens and adults.
Well, and I also think that we get our ABA therapy through AZA United. I think they'd be amazing organizations to train and partner with too, because they should incorporate that into the goals. And then of course the goals tie back to however you're getting funded for your ABA therapy. So for us, we're getting funded through our private insurance. Wouldn't it be great if Aetna had a CPT code that recognized X number of hours for Be Safe training? Because
don't even get me started on CPT
wouldn't they rather
codes.
wouldn't they rather though invest in that training than to
Yes.
have someone hospitalized or worse off
Well, that's okay.
killed?
So that's the other thing.
I mean, it all comes down to money, and
it does. And this is going to save. So this is the other thing that I spend a lot of time talking to politicians about and government people about. Our community is heavy user sometimes of law enforcement in ways that aren't necessarily inappropriate. Not necessarily appropriate because we are not connecting the person to the service. So what happens is you call crisis intervention. They won't come because your child's being violent. The police come. And if your child's violent, for instance, here's a story. The mother was being chased by her son with a knife when law enforcement arrived. And I was really impressed. They didn't shoot the kid, right? He has a knife. He's chasing a woman down the street with a knife.
Mm-hmm.
And so this clearly looks like domestic violence. But this child has autism. He doesn't know what's happening. And so, law enforcement has to arrest him because it's domestic violence. These officers have been trained by Be Safe. They did not want to arrest him. They climbed all the way up to the chief trying to figure out a way not to arrest him. Parents contact me in the middle of the night. What
Cynthia!
can we do? I contact some of my contacts through Mesa and some other places, and law enforcement officer goes down to where the child's family is waiting for court, and they are able to intervene.
Oh,
which is amazing. But there's so much work that has to be done. Like, this family probably could have used supportive services before this point, right?
I'm sure there's a ton of people that are missing out on supportive services.
So I'm asking DDD, what are you doing to identify these families that are in crisis? And can you provide supports so that we're not overusing law enforcement in these ways where law enforcement's not really... They're a tool that's not designed for this.
That's not what they're there for.
Right. And their domestic violence is very hard to deal with when it comes to special needs community because they don't have a lot of room to wiggle. Like, if you're punching someone in the head, they have to do something about that. So what we want to do is intervene before this happens. And that's the other thing Be Safe does. Because anybody that comes to one of my trainings, if there's something going on, I mean, I'm asking questions of families like...
Give me an example. What's a possibility? I mean, doesn't the program evolve and change as you get more living examples of what could possibly
It's different every
occur?
time I do it. Because
that's
all
nice.
the people are all different, right? And the interaction, which is why I love it so much because it's never the same. And then I'm asking people questions and I'm like, okay, I need to speak with you after because you need services you're not getting. I want to help you can make that connection. And then the other thing that I really like about the program is some people in our community don't always want to tell their children that they have a disability. So does your daughter know that she has a disability?
No, she thinks she's a freaking unicorn.
Well, she kind of is.
She doesn't have any idea that she has a disability. I mean, I think she definitely recognizes that I treat her differently than my typical son, and that, you know, I mother her more. But I think the more I mother her, the more she wants me to mother her.
Yes.
But no, I think that's what I always wonder is if people know that they have an intellectual disability and when it figured into their mind and what they think about themselves. Or was it an answer and they now have a way to accept themselves because they aren't responsible?
Well,
you know what I mean? They're not like they
yourself.
aren't behaving poorly because of a bad choice. It's just they are who they are.
Right.
And it gives them a break.
So as someone with a severe disability, so I have severe dyslexia. I did not learn to read till after 3rd grade. I cannot spell to this day. I cannot spell. Spell check has no idea what I'm trying to do. Like, never knows what I'm trying to spell. Siri, for some reason, does not understand me.
Well, I don't like Siri.
So
Siri's crazy.
She doesn't like me. So
she doesn't like me either.
So I can't spell. So I'm like example, I'm doing a plate with Mark, and we need to spell lemonade. And I can't spell lemonade. I'm looking at my phone. My phone doesn't know what I'm trying to... I try calling my husband. He's in a meeting. He can't tell me. So Mark and I guessed how to spell lemonade, which is not correct. And we now have a plate that has the word lemonade incorrectly spelled that we display in our house, which is just us. But I can tell you, I was not officially diagnosed until college.
How did you spell lemonade?
So I spell Lemonade.
Isn't that how it's spelled?
No.
Well,
But it was a good guess, right?
I thought that's how it was spelled. I feel like I should pull up my computer right now. Wait, I'm going to do it. I'm going to look it up. Lemonade. That's how it's spelled.
Okay, but I spelled it, Lemonade.
Oh, AIDE,
Yes,
like lemonade and aid to lemons. No,
Yes.
okay. Well, okay.
So I probably taught myself after that because it's traumatic.
We just got a name for our podcast.
Yes.
How do you spell lemonade?
In fact, I'm going to take a picture of it and send it to you so you can see it.
I would like you to, because that'll be our avatar for this pod, will be the lemonade plate.
So I can tell you that not finding out that I had a severe disability until college was super traumatic my whole life.
Oh, I can only imagine.
I thought that I was stupid and I was trying to fake my way through life and not let people know how stupid I was.
That's a terrible place to be as a young
It
person.
really is. And so what I try to explain to parents who have kids with disabilities is that we have to be honest about who they are to themselves, because people know when they're not fitting in. They have a feeling about it. So if we don't talk about it, they come up with their own dialogue, and it's never good. And the reason this is important is because we need to teach our community how to self-disclose. So did you see the Buckeye incident with the kiddo and the police officer that everybody was so upset about? Did you see that video?
Maybe. When was it?
So last year. So
I think so.
the police officer, so I watched it and I had a different view of what most people did. So most people saw it and they were pissed at the police officer.
So explain what happened.
Okay,
Oh,
so
there's
the-
Sadie going through the dog door.
So the police officer saw this kid wandering the park by himself, and he thought he was on drugs. And he was trying to get him to come here, and he was trying to get him to do stuff, and the kid wasn't doing it. And so he pulled the kid, and the kid fought back, and they ended up on the ground. So when I'm watching this video, I'm thinking that officer had such self-control. I'm so happy he didn't shoot that kid.
Right. I mean,
Right?
just to just physically touch and try to just calm or...
So, but everybody was mad.
Because he touched him.
Because he didn't know the word stemming either. So, but stemming is a word that we use.
I just don't think that's fair. Nobody knows the dialogue that we have and
That's
the
right.
phrases that we have.
So I was actually impressed because everything the police officer did was legal. It may not have looked good, but it was legal.
Well, I think if people followed me around with a video camera, they might not think I'm entirely above board.
Right,
with
me too.
What
right?
I need to do with
Thank God
my
it's
daughter.
not on video. Yeah. So when I talk about this, so let me give you an example. So one of my friend's kids who's done Be Safe several times saw that video and said to his mother, "Mommy, the kid didn't do what the police officer said. He was supposed to do what he was told. He didn't do that." True. The other thing is, if that kid could have said, instead of "I'm stemming," if he could have said, "I have autism,"
Right.
something different would have happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to teach our population to be able to say, "I have autism.
So-
I have a disability."
So whenever I meet with you, I find that I have a to-do list because I'm apparently going to have to sit down with my daughter and explain to her that she's different.
Right.
Damn it. I don't want to have that
I
conversation.
know. I'm sorry. But
Ah.
if we don't have the conversation, then they can't tell anybody else.
And yeah, I know.
And then they can't ask for help.
Right.
So self-disclosure is crucial to safety.
Absolutely.
And if you can't tell law enforcement what's going on with you, they can't guess. They're not
It's
mind
not fair.
readers.
It's not fair.
So now if you have a kiddo that can't disclose, then I advise families to have a medical alert bracelet.
Yep.
Because a medical alert bracelet tells law enforcement something's going on.
Something's different.
Yes.
And we used to put a wristband on Elle that was a medical alert bracelet, and they don't have a symbol for autism that you can choose to have engraved.
That's right.
Which is like, why don't they have that? But we at least had our phone numbers on the, my mom is, my dad is, so that they could see that it's referencing, hey, there's a person who can't speak for themselves.
And DDD has a medallion program, which is okay, except that it doesn't work outside of the state. So
You need
that's
something nationally recognized.
yes. So medical alert,
globally recognized.
yeah. So medical alert is the best thing to do. Phoenix has a grant program right now, so anybody with a developmental disability can get one from them for free. So that's crucial too. So self-disclosure in whatever way we can do it is important because it's information that puts law enforcement on notice that they should maybe be doing something different.
So we're going to probably have to wrap it up because as you and I can get a little lengthy.
Right.
But if someone wants to learn more about Be Safe, where can they go to inquire about training, whether they're inside the state of Arizona or they're outside of Arizona?
Okay, so let me just say, if they go to Be Safe the movie, they can buy the curriculum, they can hire Emily Island to come out and train.
But they can't teach until they get certified.
That's right. But you can buy the program and use it at your house. So whenever we do a Be Safe, we give away the movie to all the
Oh,
participants, so
awesome.
that because this is only the start of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Right? This is just the start. So we want people to go beyond this. So it's Be Safe the movie. And everybody in
Like
the
.com or
yeah, I think it
just
is.
Google
But
Be
if you
Safe the
Google
movie?
Be Safe the movie, it'll come up.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if you're inside of the state of Arizona, we have Be Safe in Arizona website. And so all the trainers will be giving us their information, and we'll have a calendar.
I was going to ask if
so
there's
you
a
can look
calendar of
for
trainings.
events.
Okay.
And if there's anybody in rural Arizona, I'm passionate about getting out there, but I can't do it there unless law enforcement's willing to participate. And I have access to trying to find families to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's crucial.
So they need to get a list of people who are willing to show up first.
Yes, and a commitment from law enforcement the third. So I went to Yuma to do one, and I had like 40 people.
That's a lot of people for Yuma.
For Yuma. And again, Spanish. So
So how is your Spanish?
So my Spanish sucks. I don't speak it. So I had a translator again, but I'm passionate about getting to that community, right? So and law enforcement said they would come, but they didn't show. So Be Safe is not that productive without law enforcement.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Did you shame them later?
I'm still shaming him. I just mentioned it.
Yuma law enforcement.
Yeah.
Show up to things you promised to go to.
That's right.
Come
so
on.
I hold a grudge, man. Come on. So, and to be fair to them, maybe they didn't understand really what it's about.
It could be.
But
I mean,
it's
until you have
important.
the conversation, you never know. I mean, as my daughters and sons daycare director used to say, you believe half of what you see and none of what you hear.
That's exactly right.
Well, I am grateful again to you for coming out today, boot and all. And I had not known much about the Be Safe program. I actually thought it was more of a program for law enforcement than it was for us in the community. And so I thank you for your enthusiasm and for sharing it. And hopefully people listening to this pod will spread the word and it can save lives.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right.
I love it.
All right, guys. This is Jen. Whoop, whoop. To all you warrior parents out there, we'll talk soon. Bye.